Kick off with The Guardian and bad news for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Yes, The Guardian are loving this. Boris Johnson prays his number hasn't come up as Tory grassroots anger grows. So they've basically been fishing around asking anonymous MPs, and it's not looking good for Boris. They're saying if 54 Conservative MPs have turned against him, the PM will soon face a survival test, but it may be about more than winning. And what they mean there, of course, is it's not just the number, it's about the margin. It's about, you know, they're also going to wait for this by-election, June 23rd, which could go badly for Boris. So the sort of rumblings are that people are pretty unhappy with him, at least if you believe The Guardian, which, of course, we probably shouldn't. But this is other newspapers are available, or whatever they say. But they've asked this guy who's an anonymous Tory MP in the Southern constituency, that's all they'll say, so you can try and figure out if you want. Yep. And he's saying it's overwhelming from people who normally vote Tory. He says he's had 400 emails and only 4 of them have been supporting the Prime Minister. So, I mean, I know the GB viewers get sick of the Boris bashing, but he may be in a bit of trouble.
Do you think that if he is unseated, Nick, that it could produce a democratic crisis in this country? Because if anyone's got a mandate to govern, it's Boris Johnson with an 80-seat majority. Do you not think there'll be anger across the country among his supporters if he goes?
There'll certainly be anger from his supporters, but the question is, has that changed? Has the majority... That's the question. The by-elections might show us that, but has his majority... Obviously, it can't literally change yet, but have people's minds changed because of Partygate and other issues? You know, so do they still support Boris? I mean, loads of people definitely do. But it's how many do. That's what we're going to...
Did you support Brexit? You voted for Brexit? Or leave or remain?
I support the democratic vote, is my position on it. But I was actually out of the country, if you really want to know. But I do. But of course I support... Of course you have to leave once the vote is leave. And, of course, I'm sympathetic to those people.
Well, that's my view. I voted Remain and instantly accepted the result. And now I want a full, fat, proper Brexit, because I think you either do Brexit fully or not at all. But do you think that if Boris goes, Brexit is under threat? It could be diluted?
Yeah, you're already seeing people sort of trying to dilute it and say, we need to get back in the single market. People are all hinting at kind of softly getting back into the EU. So I definitely think it is under threat. But it's probably under threat, whatever happens to Boris. Don't you think, in general, there's a certain section of society, the Lord Adonis types, will always be pushing to somehow get us back in the EU in some form or other?
The question is, it's the million-dollar question, Jonathan, has Boris Johnson used up his 9 lives?
Is he at the end of his rope? I don't know. I think there are a lot of people who still like him, and there are a lot of people who are pretty fed up with him, especially after all the Partygate controversies and everything like that. The thing is, I think he has more than 9 lives. He just doesn't seem to get anything that...
He's got 9 wives.
He's got 9 wives, 150 children. You heard it here first.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously an important issue for the country. It's the Prime Minister of our country. And I don't think that probably it's the best thing, as we emerge from this pandemic, to have a leadership election. But also the issue for the enemies of Boris Johnson, those plotting against him, is that there isn't an obvious replacement, is there?
No, I mean... Who do you think the best, not forerunner, the person to follow him would be? Who could it be?
Shall I give you some of the odds from The Week magazine, because I was looking into this. So Truss is 6-1, Hunt is 6-1, Tugendhat is 7-1, which would be a disaster for the Leave side. Ben Wallace 8-1, Rishi 8-1, Mordaunt is 8-1, Zahawi an outside bet 14-1, Javid 16-1, and Gove is 20-1. My outside bet, dark horse, is Suella Braverman. Why can't she go for it? Because she came forward the other day with that sort of thing about we shouldn't pander to school children who wanted to change their gender identity. And she came forward. It was quite a bold sort of... It was one of these rare moments a conservative says a conservative thing, and everyone got excited. And I thought, maybe she's going for leadership. Because it's always a dark horse with the Tories, isn't it? This is my theory, going all the way back to John Major.
No one knew about John Major. He was Chief Secretary to the Treasury.
Right. People thought it was going to be Heseltine. Douglas Hurd was in there. Even with David Cameron, everyone was saying, he's too young. Even that was a dark horse. Theresa May was a bit of a dark horse candidate. Yeah. So my theory is it's always a dark horse.
Yeah, I think it would have been Rishi Sunak before it was revealed that his wife is a billionaire. And I think, unfortunately, for him, in the cost of living crisis, it's just not going to be a great look.
Well, a billionaire who doesn't
pay... Prime Minister.
Not so dishy anymore.
Not so dishy anymore.
A billionaire who doesn't pay tax was the issue, wasn't it? The non-dom status.
Yeah, I think that's exactly
the advantage he does have is that people still call him Rishi, which suggests he does have more popularity. You know how people say Boris?
Right.
Whereas no one is calling Liz Truss Liz.
They're not on first name.
Well, yeah, the only issue with old Rishi is, if Boris were to go, and I don't think he should, but if he were to go, then perhaps Rishi Sunak, the damage is done with the fact that his wife, has had favourable tax schemes. That maybe the damage is done, it's priced in. Maybe we shouldn't write Rishi off too soon. Because he's a very capable young politician, isn't he?
Yeah, he could suddenly come back. And the question is...
He could just say, well, look, my wife's rich, so shoot me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do about it?
That's why I married her.
The missus is rich, exactly.
At least I never party or eat cake. He could go with that angle. I'm just a boring guy, never has a party, but just has a rich wife.
Famous teetotaler.
Yeah, good point.
Much like you.
Yes, indeed, that's the way forward. But you asked me the other day, Mark, do Labour really have a chance of winning? That's a separate but not totally unrelated question.
I like the way you remember my questions.
That's all right.
Very flat.
Because we were talking about this, and you were saying you just didn't think Labour had a chance still. The problem is, if the Tories get a very weak leader, does that open the door to Labour? Or do they have too much of a problem with Scotland, etc., to even get in?
Well, I think that Labour's biggest problem is its leader, Keir Starmer. And this is not personal, because I've got no doubt he's a decent guy, probably a nice man, pretty smart guy, Jonathan. Mm-hmm. But a man for whom millions, they see this guy as the guy that tried to reverse Brexit.
Yeah, and by being that guy, you're already alienating half the country. I mean, I don't think that's going to... It might skew some voters, but I don't think it's going to play in your favour in the long term.
And also, I think the woke stuff won't play that well outside London for Keir Starmer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the other day, Labour was saying how they were the patriotic party, and I mean,
lol.
Yeah, well, that was the response, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that worries me, the more the media attacks Boris, the more I like him personally, the more I want him to stay. The only thing that bothers me or worries me for Boris is that the media have almost deciding to get rid of him. And they can almost do that. It's a bit like when David Moyes had to get sacked from Man United. I put everything in football terms. Eventually, it just became inevitable because the media was so against him. He was giving the wrong answers. Do you think, Mark, that the media is just so against Boris, they're just not going to let it go?
Well, I do think that. And part of me wants the Prime Minister, Boris, to stay. Part of me wants him to win the next election just because it will annoy all the right people.
Exactly.
I mean, if he wins the next election, 100-seat majority, I'm on Twitter. I'm going to open a beer, get some popcorn and just knock myself out.
The harsh reality is, with our first past the post system, Labour are going to absolutely crush it in my area anyway. So my vote is basically wasted. I voted for an obscure Christian party just because I agreed with their policies. So I'll probably just do that again.
Well, you're probably their leader now, statistically. Blimey.